So an advent of the 21st century is our ability to do things more interconnectedly, right? Globalization has never been this strong. We've never been able to connect with this many people in all of human history prior to now. But it has its side effects. And this is where the economic side gets really interesting because it affects all of us at a base level on how we live our day-to-day lives. Take, for example, the kid who becomes a SoundCloud rapper and then gets picked up by a major studio. You used to maybe be discovered by having some producer come to your concert or some way riding the connection chain, and there were fewer producing options, but it basically guaranteed that once you were found, you would have a spot and you would climb to the top. Now, more people have the ability to make it big, right? All you have to do, theoretically, is make it big on TikTok or on YouTube Shorts or whatever, and then now the public can decide what they want. But then we reach this new problem where now there are so many people who can do it that the public has to decide what they see, and many times the algorithm decides what you see in one way or another. So it's not actually that easy to climb to the top. And then on top of that, to stay at the top is an entirely different ballgame because you not only have to have the skills, say like singing, you also have to have the ability to produce, to make good videos, to like know connections, to do marketing. These are all skills that you didn't necessarily need to have before because your studio could take care of it, right? We distributed these jobs. So it's like in the same way, say you wanted to run a 3D printing company, like I did, you run into this problem of, oh my gosh, I need to know how to market, I need to know how to run a store, I need to know how to design, and I need to make my little 3D printer produce as good of quality as a factory that has $1 billion invested in it. So we've made a trade here where what we could do, what fewer people used to be able to do, but everyone had a role in that and you only had to be specialized in one thing, we're replacing with you have to be good at everything, but anyone can do it. Which in a way is just shifting the population that's actually able to achieve things, but it's not necessarily increasing the number of things that we can do. Because as we get better as a society, at least at fulfilling our needs, we have more free time. And with more free time means that we are scrolling through the internet more, consuming more data, consuming more news. And with more news, more things get seen, but they're all of lower value, right? If you read the news, if you had access to one newspaper article a day 200 years ago, it would have a significantly higher impact on you than now if you're able to read a newspaper article every 1 to 5 minutes, which is something I wind up doing. So you wind up in this place where just because we have access to technology does not mean that we're actually getting better, that we have the ability to compete. And I'll give you one more example, which is something that I face as a store, right? The minute you go online, you are no longer just trying to be good. You have to outcompete on some way against the entire globe, right? And sometimes that is just, oh, I'm local, so the shipping costs are lower, so buy from me. But if you enter the global market space, then you may be competing against companies in China or companies in Indonesia where production costs are just simply lower. And that won't last forever. But before we get to the point where human rights increases and worker pay increases, you will be competing against them. And so anything you do, right, whether it be you just post TikToks online or you want to create a company, you want to be an educator, say you're creating an educational YouTube channel, right? You're not just competing with, oh, I've got to be a good enough teacher in my county to get a job. You have to get views, you have to be good enough on a whole new level. You have to be able to compete with international people, which is a much bigger pool than there was locally. So essentially this problem is replicating the fact that like on a lower level, you have like fewer people to compete with, but also you can't get that far. Your chances of making it out of the neighborhood are fairly low, but your chances of success, at least locally, are higher. But then the flip side is that if you, in the 21st century, want to make it big, you have access to all the tools, but your skill level needs to be higher, and the people you're competing against, that pool is much, much larger. So we always trade something for something else. And in this case, it's our ability to succeed. And I do think that this strongly contributes to the fact that like we see a wealth gap increasing, right? More and more money is spent on marketing today than used to be. And part of that goes to, well, now we're trying to hit bigger audiences, but the number of people that can buy and their amount of income has not changed. So we're spending more money trying to get them, but we're not able to extract more money from them, and they're not making any more money. So especially as like small companies try to compete with large companies, if there's no mechanism to help that, then small companies get stuck the way they are and or die, and large companies can rule a country, as we see to some extent here. So these are just things to keep in mind. But for as much as, like, even yesterday I was talking to some kids, and like they were telling me about their, their career dreams. And it's like, if you want to go into sports, if you want to go into like making films, these are things that are not easy to get into. And as the pool of people that get selected for any one football team is no longer, say, local, it's on a nationwide level. Or, your soccer team, right? You can be recruited for some parts of soccer as long as you have any ties to that country, which means you're no longer just up against the people from your country, you're up against the people from the entire world. So, yeah. Point is, as much as I'd like to say, as much as we'd all like to say, go out and achieve your dreams, it's not as achievable as we think. And we have to circumvent a lot of competition that didn't used to exist. So I guess in some ways, it's also a reality check for the fact that, like, when we say, man, our parents did not seem to have it this hard, might actually be true. But these are just things to keep in mind.